الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا وعظيمنا وحبيب قلوبنا وشفيع نفوسنا أبي القاسم محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين وأصحابه الغر الميامين. الحمد لله الذي جعلنا من المتمسكين بولاية سيدي ومولاي علي بن أبي طالب. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. أما بعد، يقول الله في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قال اجعلني على خزائن الأرض إني حفيظ عليم. The first of our salawat in honor of Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. The second in honor of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib. The third with your loudest voices in honor of the Imam of our time, Imam Sahib al-Asr wal-Zaman. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Respected scholars, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. The verse in question, verse 55 of chapter 12 of the Holy Quran, discusses the issue of whether it is permissible for a Muslim to work for a non-Muslim government. And indeed, whether it is permissible for a Muslim to work for a government which differs from his or her ideology. Such a question is a question of fundamental importance, especially in the world today. And the fact that many Muslims have migrated from their countries of origin to move to many of the countries of the Western world. You find that through this migration, it meant that they had to settle within those countries, find their place within those countries, and indeed search for their identity within that particular country. Many of their youth would then go on to study subjects at universities such as political science, or indeed subjects such as international relations. And indeed the question would always come up that, having studied these subjects, does the religion make it permissible for the Muslim to work or indeed to participate in the activities of a non-Muslim government? Or indeed, for that matter, is it permissible for a Muslim to participate in the government of an ideology which, although may be part of their religion, may have a different set of principles to what they do? So for example, if there is a Muslim who is living today in the United States of America, or a Muslim who lives in the UK, are they allowed to participate in American politics? Are they allowed to participate in the British political system? And indeed, even the question arises that for a follower of Ahlul Bayt, who may live in a country which does not espouse the teachings of Ahlul Bayt, are they allowed to participate in the politics of that country or no? Such a discussion is of the utmost importance, and without a shadow of doubt, affects each and every one of our lives in the world today. And normally, you have three responses in the communities within which we live. The first response is a group who come out and say anyone who participates in the political system of a non-Muslim country is a sellout. That person, the blood of non-Muslims is on their hands, because they have participated with a country whose foreign policy, part of its dictates is that Muslims should be annihilated, or indeed they go out in searching for the Muslim enemy. This particular group of people in the community will always come forward and state, when they hear that someone is on Capitol Hill, or that someone is in Westminster, you'll find that they'll always say that such people are as bad as the people they represent. Such people, when they go to these environments, are in the very environments which oppose the religion of Islam. Then you have a second group of people who say the completely opposite. They say, well, now that we've settled in these countries, we're not going to go home anytime soon. Our children know the culture of these countries. Our children follow the habits of these countries. Our generations will continue to prosper and live in this environment for a while to come. You therefore find that second group say, no, we have to participate. Why? Because on issues of local government, or indeed issues of international government, our word will have a say on the future of humanity. You see, sometimes when you see injustice, it's not because of the work of the enemy. It's rather because of the silence of those who you thought were your friends. You find that this second group of people, what do they say? They say, no, we have to participate, because then we'll have an effect on the future of the religion. Then you had a third group of people. They were those who are called those who sit on the fence. Neither do they promulgate the idea of participating in a government which is a non-Muslim government. And on the other hand, they don't say that you shouldn't have a voice. No, they say that you should be involved, not necessarily espousing the doctrine of the country, but that you should be involved in trying to change the thoughts and the affairs of the country at hand. The question therefore is of the utmost importance, that according to Islamic literature, are we allowed to participate in a government which differs from our ideology? As in, if someone was to go back to the literature today, can we find instances in Islamic history where people participated, where prophets participated, where holy saints of the religion participated in a government which differed from their ideology? Let's examine this in a number of stages in tonight's analysis. Number one, the verse, which prophet does it refer to of God who participated in the government of a non-Muslim? Number two, did the prophet himself ever ask for help from non-Muslims? And if he did, how important was a Christian priest to the survival of Islam in its early days? Number three, did any of the Imams of Ahlul Bayt allow their followers to be prime ministers under governments who they differed with? And what was the conditions? Number four, when our eighth Imam took up the reins under Al-Ma'mun, what was his reasoning behind why he took up these reins? And what did he highlight about not compromising your faith, even if you're in the government of someone whose ideology differs with you? And number five, how important was the political stand of Sayyidah Zainab and our fourth Imam in shaking the government of Yazid and forcing him to allow them to return back to their homes? Let's examine this and completely dissect the topic in depth. The verse in question is taken from chapter 12. Chapter 12, as we all know, is called the chapter of Yusuf, or in the English language, the story of Prophet Joseph. As we know, there are certain prophets in the Quran who are also biblical prophets. You find that these prophets are a common denominator between us and our biblical brotherhood. You find that the Christian religion and the religion of Judaism also bring about the teachings of the story of Prophet Joseph. And truly, as the Quran describes, the story of Prophet Yusuf is the best story in the whole Quran. As in, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala states, Ahsan al-Qasas, the best of stories, someone asked the question, why did he say that's the best story in the Quran? Why not the story of Moses, or the story of Jesus, or the story of Abraham? The reason is, the story of Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam relates to each and every one of us living in the 21st century. Because there are some people who come and say, the Quran, like any other book of Revelation, is a book of history. What am I going to benefit from books of history? You find the Quran, on the other hand, isn't just a book of history. It's a book of ethics, a book of theology, and a book of jurisprudence as well. When the Quran gave you the story of Prophet Yusuf, God wanted to tell you, everything you'll face in life, that man faced. Be you someone who's age 6 or someone who's age 70. Both of you can relate to the story of Yusuf. Why? Because Prophet Yusuf, his story begins from childhood, doesn't it? As soon as he sees that dream at that very young age, from the outset, his father Jacob says to him, don't narrate that dream to your brothers. Why? Because sometimes you may be brothers in the same family and you still have envy between each other. Isn't that true? As in, do not tell me that in your life you've never come across two brothers who haven't envied each other. In our life, either in our own families, or in our cousins, or in the families of our friends, there's always been a story of two brothers who have shown envy towards one another. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, through the Prophet Jacob, what was Prophet Jacob saying? Don't tell your brothers, I don't care if they're your own flesh and blood. Sometimes your own flesh and blood can be more of a traitor to you than those outside of your family. You find that Prophet Yusuf, when his brothers see the affection the father has for him, that envy causes them to do what? It causes them to take him and in the middle of the forest throw him down a well. They came back to their father. They said to their father that, you know what, unfortunately we've got sad news for you. He said, what's the news? They said that the news is that our brother's been eaten by a wolf. Here's the shirt to prove it. Now that shirt was in quite outstanding condition. And as you know, we've never seen a wolf which eats a human being but keeps the shirt in good condition. Because when Prophet Jacob saw the shirt, he was like, so this is the shirt. They said, yes, look at the marks of blood. He said, I'm just surprised at this wolf that it ate your brother, but the shirt is still intact. Normally, Mr. Wolf, if he eats you, there's no such thing as a shirt afterwards. Anyway, that Yusuf was down the well. While that Yusuf was down the well, what happened? While that Yusuf was down the well, you found that there was a caravan going towards Egypt. In those days, the slave trade was very high. That caravan going towards Egypt had noticed him when they had asked for some water. They came to his brothers. They said, how much will you sell him for? The brothers sold him for a paltry sum. He went with them as a slave. In Egypt, people were mesmerized by his beauty. As in Egypt, they themselves had beauty, but they were mesmerized by his beauty. And you found that everyone was involved in a bidding war for him to become a servant for them at home, until the treasurer of Egypt, he's the one who purchased him. As you know, when he came into the house, what did we see? When he came into the house, the treasurer of Egypt's wife was infatuated with him. As in, she had never seen anyone who was that beautiful. And that's why when the religion of Islam is quite strict on male-female relations, sometimes people outside the religion say, why is the religion so backwards? Why is it so strict? Because the religion of Islam was trying to bring a barrier. What type of barrier? The religion was trying to say, you open your doors to someone to allow them to be in your house. I don't care which male it is, which female. If they are strangers to each other, then Satan is the third of the three. As in, do you know how many times in the world today adultery has become a norm? Adultery has become a norm, that they even name certain sitcoms and certain serials after ladies who enjoy swapping partners in their own neighborhood. I don't need to bring the names from the minbar. There are certain documentaries or indeed sitcoms about ladies who enjoy swapping partners in the neighborhood. You found the Quran was highlighting that even though this lady is married, there can be a dangerous situation in these moments. Today you find some Muslim families, the wife doesn't mind inviting her husband's friend home. Where's your husband? Oh, he's out for the moment. He'll be back about an hour. You stay. I don't care who it is. That boundary has to be observed. We are trying to protect the fabric of the society we live in. We don't want adulterous situations, because you know what adultery is? Adultery has a damaging domino effect on society. You think adultery only affects two people? Adultery affects the in-laws. It affects the whole neighborhood. It even affects the church or the mosque you go to. When you go back to that place, some people can't show their faces because of their behavior. What happened? She chased him. Her husband walks in. When her husband walks in, he finds her chasing him. Nabi Yusuf was telling her that, listen, I've got no interest in you. I fear my Lord. At the end of the day, what's the point of one sin and then a punishment which comes later? I'd rather observe my modesty and have my Lord be pleased with me. She wouldn't care. And that's why anyone today who says to me that it's difficult for me and a girl at college, or it's difficult for me and a girl at university, when we're alone together, say, look at the story of Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam. You said the Quran is only a book of history. He is a prophet of God, and God tested him with this situation. God tested him. You're alone with a woman. This is the test that comes with you. Her husband, what happened? She said that it was him chasing me. It wasn't me chasing him. And what did they do? They ordered that Joseph was to be sent to the prisons. In prison, something happens which changes the course of his destiny. What is it? That in the prison, he had lots of prisoners around him, and there were two prisoners in particular. These two prisoners were accused of killing or trying to plot the assassination of the king. They saw Nabi Yusuf was a man of modesty, a man of humility. They came up to him, they said, can we ask you a question? He said, go ahead. They said, we've seen two dreams and we're uncertain about their interpretation. One of us sees ourselves serving drinks to the king. The other of us sees that there is a bird eating from his head. What's the interpretation of these dreams? The reply was what? The reply was, I'll tell you the interpretation of these dreams. But first let me tell you about the oneness of the Lord that I worship. Because there's no point me telling you about this, but both of you don't know about God. Do you know how many Muslims in history converted in prison? How many? Do you know how many we have in prison who became Muslims? Malcolm X. Malcolm X came towards the religion of Islam. And his grandson is a follower of Ahlul Bayt. His grandson is a member of our community. He is a firm follower of Al Muhammad. One of the strictest followers of Al Muhammad. Malcolm X came towards the religion in prison. Others came towards the religion of prison. You find Nabi Yusuf alayhi salam thought to himself, one of these guys, the interpretation of his dream, what is it? One of them, the interpretation of the birds eating from his head is crucifixion. He's going to be crucified and the birds shall eat from his head. And the other one, the interpretation was you're going to serve drinks to the king when you're released. He gave them both the interpretation. Both were released, but one was crucified. The other one, who he knew would be safe, what did he say to him? He said to him, remember me with your king. As in, don't forget me. Some Muslims come, when they look at this verse, they say, why didn't Joseph go direct to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Because we live in a world where we use intermediaries, don't we? As in, I can go direct to God in everything, but God has given me intermediaries. I can use intermediaries if they are close towards what I want. You found that he went, but when he went to serve the king, he never remembered Nabi Yusuf for many years. Until that king one day wakes up and he's seen a dream. He tells his servants around him, I see 7 skinny cows in my dream that eat 7 fat ones. And I see 7 full corns of which are green. And I see 7 which are empty. Can someone give us the interpretation of the dream? It's difficult for a speaker to concentrate if there are children moving. It's very difficult to concentrate. And that's why I expect the parents to try and keep their children with them. If this child's parents are here, if someone can just hold on to the child. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So what happens is that as soon as he sees this dream, he says, do any of you know how to interpret the dream? The reply is, none of us know. Then one of them remembers Nabi Yusuf alayhi salam. He remembers, when I was in prison, I remember Yusuf was in prison with me. So what happens? He says to the king, I know someone who can interpret the dream for you. The king, what does he do? The king straight away, what does he do? He says, go and ask him about my dream. When that prisoner returns to Nabi Yusuf sees him, he says to him that you forgot me all this time. I thought you'd remember me. He said, listen, I've got an opportunity for you now. I've remembered you now. He said, how have you remembered me? The reply was that the king has seen a dream and he wants the interpretation of that dream. He said, what's the dream? He said he's seen 7 skinny cows eating 7 fat ones. He's seen 7 years, 7 harvests which are green and 7 which are empty. What is the interpretation of this dream? Our 6th Imam, as a recommendation for those of you who always ask me, is there a book of interpretation of dreams? There's a fantastic book from our 6th Imam. Every word in a dream which you see, he has told you what the meaning is. Try and get hold of that book. It's a fascinating work. You find Nabi Yusuf straight away, he said to him, the answer of the dream is very normal. The interpretation is very clear. Because we know dreams are of 3 types. Either there is a dream which makes no sense whatsoever. They are called adghath or ahlam. Adghath is the sticks in the haystack. You've seen sticks in a haystack? They're all jumbled up, aren't they? There's no meaning to sticks in a haystack. They're all jumbled up. Likewise, there are one type of dream, they're all jumbled up. A second type of dream, they have a meaning, but metaphorical. If I see wild cats in my dream, it means enemies. If I see someone who dies, it means old age. Metaphorical. Then there's a third type of dream which affects people like Yusuf. That's revelation from God. When it came to Nabi Yusuf, what did he say? Nabi Yusuf said very clearly. He said to him, it means that you're going to have 7 great years of harvest. But then make sure you store from those 7 years of harvest. Store something, and then after that, make sure you do what? You're going to have a drought for 7 years. That which you've stored will look after you in the drought. The prisoner, what did he do? He straight away went back towards the king. He said, I've got the interpretation for you of the dream. He said, what's the interpretation? The reply was, the interpretation is 7 years of harvest. Then we're going to have 7 years of drought. Make sure at the end of the 7th year of harvest, we have stored enough to look after ourselves in 7 years of drought. The next line of the king proves the Quran is the word of God. Someone will say, what do you mean? The next line was, قَالَ الْمَلِكُ ائْتُونِ بِهِ. The king said, bring him to me. This proves the Quran is the word of God. How? The king said, bring him to me. How does that prove the Quran is the word of God? The Bible says, Pharaoh said to the person, bring Joseph to me. The Quran uses the word Malik. It doesn't use Fir'aun. Fir'aun it uses with Musa, isn't it? But with Joseph, the Quran said, قَالَ الْمَلِكِ. Because there weren't any pharaohs in the time of Joseph. They came 200 years after. That's a historical accuracy of the Quran which the Bible didn't get. You see, when we say the Bible's been tampered with, it's not to disrespect Christians. No, we don't have that attitude. Rather, it's because we're all searching for the truth. If you're saying Pharaoh wasn't the title of Egyptian rulers until 200 years after Joseph. They were called kings. Actually, they were called Hyksos in their language. The Quran said, the king said, bring him to me. When he went back to Joseph, what did he say? He said, the king wants you. He wants to employ you. Joseph replies with a stunning line. He says, first tell him to prove my innocence with the case of Zulaykha. Because to enter politics, you can't be a person full of scandal. You may be a person full of scandal after you've entered politics. But before you enter the political scene, your resume has to be one which is clean. Because I, as a human being, I have a certain nature which isn't good in me. Do you know what it is? If I give you a piece of paper and there's a black dot in the middle, everyone will ask me, why is there a black dot? No one will ask me about the whiteness, isn't it? Show a human a piece of white paper with a black dot in the middle. They'll say, why is there a black dot? But excuse me, look at all the whiteness. No. I want to know the black dot. What's it doing there? Isn't it? Nabi Yusuf alayhi salam, what did he do? Nabi Yusuf alayhi salam said, wait. He wants me to be his economic minister? Forget it. First let him ask, was it me who ran after Zulaykha? Or did Zulaykha run after me? Because if it's me who runs after her, that means I'm trying to steal the wife of a married man. A person like that should never be on top of a political system. Do you know the difference between Islam's political system and Muslim politics? Muslim politics, any Tom, Dick and Harry with whatever reputation can be at the top of Muslim politics. Whereas in Islamic politics, a man has to consciously have recognition his Lord is observing his every move. What's the difference between Muawiyah and Ali? Wallah, if Ali ibn Abi Talib wanted to in politics, he could have destroyed Muawiyah with the cunningness of a Machiavellian, couldn't he? But he doesn't enter Machiavellian politics like Muawiyah. Muawiyah, any form of deceit. And that's why, as the poet says, when history looks back at the two of them, when you say Muawiyah doesn't pray, people will call him a kafir. When you say Ali does not pray, people will call him God. So what do you find? You find here, when you look at it, he said, go and clear my innocence. He went to clear his innocence. The king went, he got Zulaykha. He said to her, Zulaykha, was it you or was it him? She said, no, I'm not going to make excuses. It was me. I ran after him. The man is innocent. As soon as the king heard this, he said, thank everything that I believe in. I want this person to be my economic minister. Then when he came to Yusuf, Yusuf himself asked the king, قال اجعلني على خزائن الأرض Inni hafidhun alim. Put me over the treasury. I am one who is honorable, and I will look after the treasury and know its importance. Nabi Yusuf, is he a believer in God or no? Yes, he is. The king is a polytheist. Don't Muslims always attack polytheism? So if it was wrong to work in a government of polytheists, what's a prophet of God asking to work there for? The reason the prophet of God asked to work in a government which differed from his ideology is, hopefully by working with this government, I can protect the interests of my people. I can make sure that our people's rights are looked after. I can make sure that when policy is made, my tongue has a voice. Because the tongue of the human, its weight is so light, its power is so devastating. You find therefore that what did he think? He thought to himself, I'll work for that government. I know that the man who rules the government's ideology is different from mine. But at the end of the day, I want the betterment of society. I want the betterment of humanity. At the end, Yusuf became the king of the nation himself. Because that polytheist man may be different to me in ideology, but sometimes when his principles are humanitarian, then that transcends religion. I tell you, sometimes we have Muslims who are the worst unjust people, and sometimes you may have a non-Muslim who's a just human being, isn't it? You find therefore that when Nabi Yusuf accepted the post, he set a precedent that as a Muslim, there is no harm working for a government whose ideology differs from your ideology. And that's why Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, that's why the Prophet himself highlighted, if we need the help of a non-Muslim government, then there isn't a problem of diplomatic relations and affairs between us and them. Because this religion, when it was going through hardship, I tell you, when it was going through hardship, it was a Christian priest who helped this religion remain alive. I tell you, a Christian priest in the land of Abyssinia, because Rasulullah's companions were being tortured, as in Ammar saw his father Yasir killed, he saw his mother Sumayya executed. You found Bilal had a big black rock placed on his chest. Others companions were tortured to death. Islam was at a very young age. Rasulullah called Ja'far, the son of Abu Talib, Imam's brother. He said to him, Ja'far, come near me. That Ja'far al-Tayyar's position in Islam remains alive forever. In Karbala, when Imam came out, he said, isn't my uncle Ja'far al-Tayyar? You lot all remember Ja'far. Ja'far al-Tayyar, Rasul said to him, go to Africa. He said to him, what is it, O Prophet? What's there? He said, over there you will meet an Abyssinian priest. He's a humble human being. That's what I should look for in human beings. Because at the end of the day, if all I'm going to focus on is theology, I forgot the very aim of humanity. Humanity is when morals exist between each other. He said, there's a humble priest in Abyssinia, go to him. When the Quraysh found out, they sent Amr ibn al-As. They told Amr ibn al-As, go to Abyssinia. Ja'far ibn Abu Talib and the companions of Muhammad are going to be given sanctuary there. Go and persuade the priest that they are speaking nonsense and corrupting the people. Amr ibn al-As reached there. At first the guards didn't allow him to enter. He put a few Arab girls in front. They suddenly changed their minds. And then all of a sudden what happened is he entered. As soon as he entered, the priest looked at him. Ja'far ibn Abu Talib was there. Amr ibn al-As looked at the priest. The priest said, what's the issue, O Ja'far? Ja'far said, we are those who believe in the oneness of God. And we believe that God sent prophets to mankind. As he was talking, Amr ibn al-As interrupted him. He said, yes, they believe man and woman are equal. And they also believe black and white are equal. They are believing that Bilal and me are equal. And they believe in this day called the Day of Judgment, that our bodies will be resurrected and will be made to answer for everything that we've committed. And that the good are rewarded and the bad are punished. The priest looked at him, he said, Ja'far, is this what you believe? He said, yes. And then he said to him, we believe in prophets of God. And he began to name them, all of them. Then he said, and we believe in Jesus, son of Mary. The priest looked at him, he said, what do you say about Jesus, son of Mary? He said, we have a whole chapter in the Quran called Mary. When you go to your Christian brethren, let them read chapter 19. Maryam, And this is the chapter in the Quran which details more than the Bible. The Bible does not talk about what Mary faced in terms of accusations from the children of Israel when she gave a virgin birth. The Quran mentions how much trial this lady of heaven faced. And he began to explain to him that she was in a state where they were accusing her of adultery. They were attacking her family. Then she was ordered to point at the Messiah, Jesus, son of Mary, who said, Inni Abdullah, atani al-kitab, wa ja'alani nabiyya, wa ja'alani mubarakan, aynama kunt, wa awsani bis-salat, wa zakat, ma dumtu hayya, wa barran biwalidati, and so on with the verses. The priest said, is this what you believe? He said, yes. He said to him, and then who do you believe after that? He said, we believe in a final Messiah who Jesus spoke about. He said, who? He said, we believe in a man by the name of Ahmad, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. As soon as the Christian priest heard this, the Christian priest straight away said to Amr ibn al-As, what they believe in about Jesus is no different to us, nor is the length of this stick which I have drawn on the ground. He said to him, what do you mean? He said, they will have sanctuary in our land. They are Muslims, we are Christians, it doesn't matter. We have more in common than we have differences. And that's why the Quran in chapter 5 verse 82 says, وَلَتَجِدَنَّ أَقْرَبَهُمْ مَوَدَّةً لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا الَّذِينَ قَالُوا إِنَّا نَصَارَى ذلك بأن منهم قسيسين ورهبانا وأنهم لا يستكبرون وإذا سمعوا ما أنزل إلى الرسول ترى أعينهم تفيض من الدمع مما عرفوا من الحق. You know what the Quran says? You will find the closest people to you in reciprocal love are the Christians, because their monks and their priests are humble human beings. And when they hear the words of the Prophet, you'll see their eyes overflowed with tears. Do you know this priest later on became a Muslim? And he read the nikah of Rasulullah when Rasulullah married Habiba. He read the nikah. And you know in that land, Ja'far ibn Abu Talib lived there. His son, the husband of Bibi Zainab, Abdullah ibn Ja'far, was the first Muslim born in Africa. Abdullah ibn Ja'far was the first Muslim born in Africa, the husband of Bibi Zainab. Therefore you find Rasulullah set a precedent. When someone comes to you and says, don't enter politics with non-Muslims, no, enter, change the scene. Let the people appreciate our beliefs, but also appreciate that never make a blank statement that every one of politicians is bad. No, there are some who are good and some will help. And that's why you found in the times of the Imams of Ahlul Bayt, they would allow their followers to work in the government of someone whose ideology they differed with. But they would say to them, one of the conditions is that you don't reveal your faith if it's a situation of life or death. What do we mean? We mean that in the time of the 7th Imam, Ali bin Yaqteen, when he used to work under Harun al-Rashid, Ali bin Yaqteen became a follower of Ahlul Bayt. He joined Ahlul Bayt. When he joined Ahlul Bayt, he was uncertain. Can I continue to work for Harun al-Rashid? Harun al-Rashid is a prime minister who hates us. Mark the words, hates us. Forget humility. He hates us. But I'm a prime minister in his government. Can I continue to serve in his government or not? And he wanted to know from the Imam. The Imam said you can by expedient dissimulation. Taqiyya. You can act taqiyya, which means what? Which means you conceal your beliefs in the situation of life or death. Because if Harun Rashid knew Ali bin Yaqteen became a follower of Musa ibn Ja'far, he'd kill him straight away. Imam also knew Ali bin Yaqteen being a prime minister can be beneficial to some of the Shia if he remains alive and conceals his faith. He allowed him to conceal. And I tell you it was difficult. As soon as Ali bin Yaqteen followed Ahlul Bayt, he wrote to Imam Musa ibn Ja'far. He said to him, Imam, can you just make it clear for me how exactly we are meant to do wudu? Imam wrote back to him, our ablution is the following way. First, we wash our faces. Then after washing our faces, we wash our hands. Then after washing our hands, we wipe our head. Then after wiping our head, we wash our feet. Ali bin Yaqteen's reading this. He's thinking, wash the feet? I'm sure we wipe. And he's thinking, what do I do? I've heard from 100 people we have to wipe. Musa ibn Ja'far is saying wash. But Musa ibn Ja'far is my Imam and I have to submit to him. So what happened? As soon as that happened, what did you find? Harun al-Rashid had a friend in the government, and you'll always find there is dirty politicians vying against each other. Harun al-Rashid had a friend who noticed Ali bin Yaqtin's become a bit more religious. He's not like how he used to be. And he noticed letters were coming back and forth. He told Harun al-Rashid, he said, listen, I think we've got an issue. He said, what is it? He said, your prime minister. He said, what's wrong with him? Ali bin Yaqtin is one of my trusted advisors. He said, your prime minister, I think, has joined Musa ibn Ja'far. He said, not a chance. He said, I'm telling you, I'm noticing his behavior and I believe he has joined Musa ibn Ja'far in his ranks. He said to him, I'll never believe it. He said to him, well, let's find out. He said, how? He said, if he's become one of them, then he has to wipe his feet. Let's see his wudu. Imagine the two pictures coming together now. You've got Harun al-Rashid saying, let's go and spy on Ali bin Yaqtin. And Ali bin Yaqtin about to begin his wudu. Ali bin Yaqtin is still thinking, I'm sure we have to wipe our feet. But Musa ibn Ja'far has said to me, wash. Let me I begin. I wash. Then I wash. Then I wipe. He's coming down to his feet and he's thinking, I'm sure I have to wipe, I'm sure. But then he thinks, but a real follower of an Imam unconditionally submits to the Imam. And that's what we have a problem in today. Do we unconditionally submit or no? I love to come to majalis of Ahlul Bayt. And I love to learn about Ahlul Bayt. But there are certain acts which are wajib on me, which I don't think I'm ready for. You see the difference? As he came down, he washed his feet. Harun al-Rashid is looking through the window. He said, I told you, he's still one of us. Had he wiped his feet, I would have executed him there and then. But he definitely is still one of us as he has washed his feet. Imam said the condition for Ali bin Yaqtin is what? Is that he is allowed to conceal his faith if it's in a situation of life or death. Not now, today, someone goes to Westminster Capital and says, you know what, I need to conceal my faith because if I don't drink that alcohol and that dinner, they're going to look down at me. No. If it's a matter of life or death, yes. But if it's a matter of my next pay rise or bonus, no, we don't need that. Go and get a job somewhere else. So what you find? Then the question arose, but our 8th Imam, he worked with Al-Ma'mun. 8th Imam went through a difficult time without a doubt. And people until today say, how could Imam al-Rada work with Al-Ma'mun? Al-Ma'mun is not our ideology. How could we work in the government of someone who's not with our ideology? Imam was born a month after his grandfather died. A month after the 6th Imam died. He had to see the years which his father, Imam Musa ibn Ja'far, spent in prison. And then after Imam Musa ibn Ja'far was poisoned by Harun al-Rashid, Harun al-Rashid lived for 10 years after that. Barmaki says to Harun al-Rashid, he says to him, why don't you torture Ali ibn Musa? He says, I tortured his dad enough, let the young boy have a break. You find Imam al-Rada lived in that time where two sons of Harun al-Rashid hated each other. Al-Amin and Al-Ma'mun. Al-Amin came from an Arab mother. Al-Ma'mun came from a Persian slave girl. Until the end of his life, Al-Amin would always make fun of him. You're from the non-Arab, I'm from the Arab. And these two brothers hated each other. The amount they hated each other would cause a civil war between them, where Al-Ma'mun would kill Al-Amin. Al-Ma'mun needed Imam al-Rada to come in his government, because he needed to arouse the supporters of Imam al-Rada. But Imam al-Rada highlighted a fundamental point if you're going to work in a non-Muslim government. Be it Capitol Hill, be it Westminster, be it anywhere else. Never compromise your religious beliefs when you're working in a government which is not your own ideology. Your religious beliefs remain the same. Don't start telling me I have to compromise my religious beliefs because they won't allow me to stay here. No. Imam al-Rada got to Ma'mun. Ma'mun said to him, we're going to change the black flags to green flags, the color of Ahlul Bayt. Imam said, so what? He said, I'll give you my daughter, marry her. Imam, so what? He said, I'll put your name at the back of the coin. So what? He said to him, because Imam knows this guy's intentions aren't sincere, and he wants me to compromise what I believe in. So he said to him, and you're going to be my successor. Imam said to him, that will never happen, number one. I'll die before you die. And number two, I don't want to be your successor. He said to him, how dare you talk like that to me? He said, no, I don't want to be yours. He said, what do you mean? He said, if God chose you to become Khalifa, then you can't give away that which God chooses. And if you are not chosen by God, then what are you doing giving it to me? It means it's not yours. Sometimes when we get in those cabinets where we're proud of that degree we achieved at university, some of us forget our origin. We see the rosy walls around us and the marble floors below us, and we seem to forget the origin of the school that we follow. When people would come and visit Imam, they'd come and ask him, is it, now that we've traveled this far, is our prayers qasr? He said, which one of you has come to see me? Which one's come to see Ma'mun? The first one says, I've come to see Ma'mun. He said, you pray full. The second one said, I've come to see you. He said, you pray qasr. Because there's no point coming to see a leader like this. You're trying to tell me about salah, and you're being bribed by a leader like this. So they then said to him, then how could you work under a leader like this? He said to them the following magnificent answer. He said, who's greater, a prophet or his successor? They replied to him, the Muslims, a prophet. He said, who's greater, a Muslim or a polytheist? They replied to him, a Muslim. He said, imagine a prophet of God who worked under a polytheist. Do you have a problem with it? They said, who? He said, Nabi Yusuf alayhi salam. They said to him, which verse? He quoted the verse I used at the beginning of my lecture. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. قال اجعلني على خزائن الأرض إني حفيظ عليم. He said Nabi Yusuf was a prophet and he worked under a polytheist. And he's the one who asked to work under a polytheist. I've been forced to come here by Al-Ma'mun. There's a difference. He asked, and no, Allah did not condemn him. I've been forced by Al-Ma'mun to leave my land to come here. It's not me who's chosen this. But what were the Imams highlighting? Imams were highlighting, if you're going to work for a non-Muslim government, don't compromise your faith. The moment you sense you're compromising your faith, that's when slowly you've got to start to walk away, because it can be a downward spiral when you start compromising your beliefs. And that's why someone asks us in the 21st century, what do we take from Ahlul Bayt in terms of working with non-Muslim governments? What we take is it's vital for us to work first on a local level, second on an international level. What do I mean? I mean on a local level, I should first think of local government. Every day I hear Muslims saying Palestine, Palestine. I hear Muslims saying Iraq. I hear Muslims saying Pakistan. How about your own environment here? Why do you want to change the world? First change your own garden. First plant your own garden. Local government is vital. Why? Because I could have a say in terms of the future planning permission applications for a mosque, isn't it? I could have a say in the future planning applications of a youth club. I can look after the individual rights of members of my community when they walk into an airport, isn't it? I can also look after the rights and remove misconceptions on a local scale. For someone to come and say you shouldn't work in Westminster or you shouldn't work on Capitol Hill, the reply should be, hold on a local level I need to participate to help my people. Do you know what our problem is? And we should learn from the Jewish community. Because the Jewish community realized that they had been so successful before Hitler came. They were so successful in business, weren't they? But none of them entered politics. Then they saw afterwards it's not just about being successful millionaires who've got businesses. You need to enter politics to look after the future of your nation. Likewise with us, our communities are affluent on a local level. But what's the point of all the affluent if we're not going to have someone who's a spokesman for us on a local level? Then on an international level, do you know what the problem with Muslims' international politics is? They say, don't work on Westminster. Don't work on Capitol Hill. No work. Why? Because whenever Samarra was bombed, it was only after it was bombed that we stood up. After Shia were killed in Parachinar, only after they killed we stood up. When the Bahraini Shia were arrested, After they were arrested, we stood up. When the Malaysian Shia were prevented from honoring Al-Muhammad in Ashura, only then we stood up. Had we been more involved on politics on an international scale, where we had a say in countries which, whether we like it or we don't, they have a relationship with our people on one way or the other, Malaysia would never have happened with the ease that it happened. Para Chinar would never have happened with the ease which it happened. Bahrain would never have happened with the ease by which it happened. Likewise, what happened in Iraq would never have happened with the ease by which it happened. But what is our problem on an international scale? We wait for the event, then we think, what should we do? Whereas the reality should be, when we get ourselves involved, when the event itself arises, we already have a think tank. We already have a force who are ready to discuss on a diplomatic level and make changes to the world, both on a local and on international scale. Entertaining the idea of working on politics is vital. If Nabi Yusuf thought it was wrong, what's he doing under a polytheist king? But Nabi Yusuf knew the future of his religion could be looked after in this way. And that's why when you look at Ahlul Bayt's history, they tell you react with a political movement in three ways. Either with your heart, you should show disgust at injustice. Or with your tongue, you should speak out against injustice. Or if it means you need to lay down your life, then lay down your life against injustice. Because Ahlul Bayt, were they politically passive? No, they weren't. People say Amir al-Mu'mineen was politically passive. Go and read his sermons and then tell me if he's politically passive. People say Fatima was politically passive. Fadak shook them. She put a man in his place when it came to law. Then they say the rest were passive. I tell you, were it not for Sayyida Zainab's speech in Sham and Imam Zain al-Abidin, none of us would be here today. But politically they spoke out against injustice. And what a sermon she gave. You know when Saddam Hussein killed Bint al-Huda, the sister of Muhammad Baqir al-Sadr, when he killed her, he said, I'm not going to make the same mistake Yazid made with Zainab. I'll kill this lady. Yazid didn't kill Zainab, she finished him. And what a sermon. A sermon everyone should memorize. All praise be to God. Listen to the words. All praise be to God, Lord of all the worlds, and peace and blessings be on his prophet. And he was right when he said evil will be the end for those who committed evil, because they rejected our communications and they used to mock at them. Oh Yazid, do you think that God has made you honorable and made us contemptible? Now that you've been severe towards us, you've blocked the earth's zones and the heavens' horizons, and you've left no solution for us? Do you think that your reputation before God has led you to victory? You crow with pleasure. Now that the world has turned for you, our affairs are allocated to you, and our government is in your hands. Get off your high horse. Have you not read in the Quran when God says, let not those who disbelieve think that our granting them respite is good for their souls. Rather, we grant them respite so they may add to their sins. And for them there is a painful chastisement. O Yazid, O you whose father was freed by my grandfather. Is it fair that your wives are behind a curtain while the daughters of Rasulullah are taken from city to city as captives? Is it fair that you disgrace us and you unveil our faces so that all can see us, from the stranger to the acquaintance, from the noble to the ignoble, while there is none there to protect us? How can I hope for sympathy and compassion from someone whose mother chewed the liver of the nobles and who was born from the flesh of the martyrs? You don't look down at this sin, nor do you consider yourself a sinner over this mortal blow. You boast about your disbeliever ancestors, wishing that they were present so that they could see what you've done. You strike the lips and the teeth of the grandson of Rasulullah, and you've shed the blood of the progeny of Abdul Muttalib, the heavenly stars on earth. We'll be patient, O Yazid, since soon you'll be joining them. Then you'll wish your hands had withered away and that you were dumb, so that you could not have said what you said or acted what you've acted. O Yazid, by God, you've cloven your own skin and flesh. Soon you'll meet the messenger of God with the heavy burden that you have. You've shed the blood of his house. You've disgraced him, and you've held his children as captives. But, O Yazid, reckon not those who have died in the way of God as being dead. Rather, they are alive, receiving sustenance from their Lord. Enough for us is that God is the judge. Rasulullah is the supporter. Jibreel is our backbone. Then she says, O Yazid, although the plight has made me speak to you, I don't find speaking to you of any value, but I find scolding you as great. Therefore, I'll continue to scold you. The eyes are tearful, the heart is sorrowful. How ironic it is that the members of the party of God are killed by the members of the party of Shaitan, and their bodies lie alone on the ground in Karbala with no one to look after them. Then she says, O Yazid, however hard you try, you'll never obliterate our love and our memory from the hearts of the people. Your ideas are unstable. Your government is transitory. Soon you'll hear the cry from Allah, Ala la'natullah ala al-qawm al-zalimeen. But then she said a line to him, it destroyed him. It destroyed him here. Here it destroyed him. She said, O Yazid, I thank Allah. Would you say that after you lost your 2 sons? And you lost your brothers? And you lost your nephews? And people today come and tell me it's hard to be religious. Look at the granddaughter of Rasulullah. And full respect to my Sunni sisters in Turkey and my Sunni sisters in France who looked after her hijab when they were being banned. My Sunni sisters, I don't need to say anything more. They looked after her hijab. Come and look at the daughters of Al Muhammad today. What a joke. She said, I thank Allah who gave us happiness and then martyrdom and then blessings. All I ask from Allah is to recompense those martyrs who died on the 10th of Muharram. That's it. He was shaken in his place. He got to him. It got to him and he knew it got to him. He thought that that was it. Then Imam Zayn al-Abidin gave a speech that finished him off virtually, and that he had to tell them, okay, you can go back now. He would have kept them for longer, but Imam Zayn al-Abidin's political speech against injustice until today. And I ask all of you that when I recite this speech, listen to the words of the man who lost his dad on the 10th of Muharram. And do you know what's so beautiful about this sermon? The beauty about this sermon is, half of it is the fada'il of Amir al-Mu'mineen. He wanted to tell him, you think Ali is dead? Ali is still alive through his grandson. In front of Yazid, he said to him, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us virtue in 6 and given us excellence in 7. He has given us virtue in knowledge and eloquence and generosity and courage and forbearance and the believer's affection for us. He has given us excellence in that from us is Rasulullah, and from us is the truthful Ali, and from us is Ja'far who flies with wings, and from us is Hamza, the lion of God and the lion of his prophet, and from us is Fatima az-Zahra, and from us is Al-Hasan, and from us is Al-Hussein. Those of you who know me, and those of you who don't, let me tell you who I am. I am the son of Mecca and Mina. I am the son of Zamzam and Safa. I am the son of the man who held the black stone in his robe. I am the son of the man who was the best in circumambulating the Kaaba. I am the son of the man who rode Buraq through the air. I am the son of the man who led the angels in prayer. I am the son of the man who was taken to Sidrat al-Muntaha المنتهى. I am the son of Muhammad al-Mustafa. I am the son of Ali al-Murtaba, the man who fought the disbelievers until they said La ilaha illallah. I am the son of the man who fought with 2 swords and with 2 spears, and who pledged 2 allegiances and went on 2 migrations. I am the son of the man who fought at Badr and Uhud and Hunayn and did not disbelieve for even the twinkling of an eye. I am the son of the believers, pious one, the descendant of the prophets, the annihilator of the polytheists, the commander of the faithful, the glory of the worshippers, and the luminary of the fighters. I am the son of the man who was the patient and the best of them in prayer. I am the son of the man who was the first to come towards the call of Allah and His Prophet, and had none in precedent to him in belief. I am the son of the man who was assisted by Jibreel and Mikael. I am the son of the man who was the one who annihilated the ignoble and the uprisers and the deviants. I am the son of the man who attacked the aggressors and the blasphemous. I am the son of the man who was the protector of God's religion, the bearer of His knowledge and the guardian of His wisdom. I am the son of the man who was chivalrous and bold and patient and humble, a man full of virtue and a man who was pure from all impurities. He exterminated the progeny of his enemies and disturbed the disbeliever parties. Like a lion, he crushed the mingled spears and scattered them as the wind does. I am the son of the master of Iraq and the lion of Hijaz, a Makki and a Madani and a Badri and a Uhudi and a Khayfi and a Aqabi and a Muhajiri and a Ansari. I am the inheritor of the son of the inheritor of the Mash'arain. I am the son of the father of Hassan and Hussein. I am the son of Ali ibn Abi Talib. Then he said, I am the son of the woman who was pure. I am the son of the woman who was devout. I am the son of Khadijah al-Kubra. I am the son of Fatima al-Zahra. Then he said, I am the son of the man whose body lies alone in Karbala, the man for whom the angels and the jinn continue to cry, and the man who the wildebeest surround his body. As soon as he said this, Yazid said to the muadhin, recite the adhan. When the muadhin recited the adhan, he said, Allahu Akbar. Imam Zayn al-Abidin said, there is no God as great as God. And then the muadhin said, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Imam Zayn al-Abidin said, I swear my tongue and my eyes and my flesh all say there is no God but God. And then the man said, Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Imam looked towards Yazid and he said to him, oh Yazid, is Muhammad your grandfather or is he mine? He said to him, if you say that he is yours, then you are lying. But if you say that he is mine, then why did you kill his grandson on the plains of Karbala? And that's why when Yazid was sitting in the court, he had asked for his wife Hind to come and join them. Hind, when she was younger, she was in the house of Yazid. She was in the house of Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib. She used to see Imam al-Hassan. She used to see Imam al-Hussein. She used to see Abu Fadl al-Abbas, Kulthum, Sayyida Zainab. But Hind, when she had left this house, she went on to marry Yazid. Hind was sitting down in her quarters. While she was sitting down, a lady came to her. She said to her, Hind, I want you to come. She said to her, why do you want me to come? She said to her, the king has got these rebels. She said, which rebels? She said, a group of rebels who have been caught in Karbala. The king wants you to come. He wants you to sit next to him on the throne. Hind got herself ready. She did not know who she was going to see. All she did was she got herself ready. She started started walking towards the throne. She sat on the throne. Sayyidah Zainab looked at Kulthum. She said to Kulthum, do you recognize that lady? Kulthum said, no, I don't. She said, that is Hind, who used to be in our house in Medina. Hind saw them talking. When she saw them talking, she said to them, excuse me, where are you from? They replied to her, we are from Medina. As soon as Hind heard Medina, she came down from her throne. She sat on the ground. Sayyidah Zainab looked at her. She said to her, why do you sit on the ground? She said to her, out of respect for the people of Medina. She said to her, do you know anyone in Medina? Hind said to her, I know only one family in Medina. She said to her, which family? She said to her, I only know the family of Ali ibn Abi Talib. I used to go to their house and I used to sit with them. She said to her, may I ask you about some members of the family? I haven't seen them for a long time. And this moment Sayyidah Zainab looked at her. She said, tell me, who do you want to know about? She said to her, tell me about Abu Fadl al-Abbas. I haven't seen him for a while. Sayyidah Zainab looked at her and then she looked around at the spear with the head of Abu Fadl al-Abbas next to her. She looked at him. She said, do you see that head on the spear? She said to her, yes I do. She said, that's the head of Abu Fadl al-Abbas. Then this Hind said to her, she said, may I ask you about someone else? She said to her, who do you want to ask me about? She said, can you tell me about Abu Abdullah al-Hussein? I haven't seen him for a very long time. Sayyidah Zainab turned around. She looked at the other head. She said to her, do you see that head there? She said, yes. She said, that's the head of Abu Abdullah. Hind started putting everything together. She then realized. She said to her, may I ask you one more thing? She said to her, yes, go ahead, tell me. She said, may I ask you about Sayyidah Zainab? I haven't seen Sayyidah Zainab. She said to her, may I ask you about Sayyidah Zainab? Imagine how much Zainab's face changed. How much Karbala made her grow older. She said to her, if you're asking about Zainab, then I am Zainab here in front of you. Hind, as soon as she saw this, she ran into Yazid's court. Yazid turned around to her and said, how dare you enter my court without your hijab being on properly? She said to him, you tell me about hijab. How about the granddaughters of Rasulullah? Look at what you've done to the hijab of the granddaughters of Rasulullah. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Raise your hands, brothers and sisters. Raise your hands in supplication. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bring peace into the world today and to allow us to be amongst those who enjoin the brotherhood and the message of the religion of Islam. Allow us to be amongst those who receive the intercession of the prophets of God and of the intercession of the holy saints. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to raise us with the Messiah, Al-Mahdi, Al-Hujjat ibn al-Hasan. Allow us to be amongst his companions and those who follow his message. Inshallah, tomorrow is the day of the Arba'een of Imam al-Hussein. It will be the final majlis of this series, beginning at the same time. We pray to Allah to raise us with the Imam and to offer our condolences to the Imam of our time with a Surah Al-Fatiha, but before it, the loudest of your salawat.
Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, 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 Hussein.